I'm brewing an epic Scottish ale. Why epic? I'll come to that in a moment. And I want to show you a packaging solution that has become one of my absolute favourite ways of packaging beer, and it's something I've been using for a little while. In the far corner of my basement here I have twisty cans. One box, small ones, and one box, bigger ones. And what is a twisty can? Well, it's these things. It's basically an aluminum can or aluminium. The thing that makes these particularly cool is these caps. It just goes on and then a tiny little turn, it's on. So what is that, like a quarter turn maybe? And it creates a really tight seal. I've got a 12-ounce can here and then a 32 ounce. The other thing is in these caps they have a little bit of an oxygen absorbing top. So the idea is that you can fill this all up, put your beer in, cap it, and with that quarter turn it's basically sealed. And I've done a little experiment of my own, and this experiment has been 3 months in the making. You see, I have a problem when it comes to packaging my beer in cans. I have a can seamer, and when it works, it is a beauty to behold. I have my blonde ale in here. This is rock hard. It's really keeping the beer fresh, very much under pressure. But for every one of these, I also have one of these squishy ones, and it's completely my fault, but I don't think I've quite got the hang of the can seamer yet. And in fact, this is sticky because there's just a little amount of the beer coming out. You can see it right on the bottom there. This, however, is pretty much foolproof, even for me. So I filled this with seltzer water 3 months ago, and the question is it still fizzy? And it most certainly is. Now I've got some ideas on how best to get beer into these things, but how about we brew a beer first? I wasn't always the biggest fan of Scottish ales, but I've actually grown to really appreciate them. I think there's sometimes a concern that they can be a little bit cloyy, a little bit too sweet. You do need to sort of balance the caramel malt to avoid that. But here's what I really like about Scottish ales. That is the richness of flavour you get, despite the fact that it has a really low ABV. This one is about 3.7%. This is by no means a light beer. We're approaching 20 for the SRM, which you can really get the impression of here. Wonderful colour. And the base malt for this is Maris Otter. That makes up 84% of the grist. To that I have crystal malt. Yes, there is some crystal in here. This is crystal 80, and that makes up 8% of the grist. And then 7% is pale chocolate malt and 1% roasted barley. And I really like that combination of crystal 80 and pale chocolate malt to give the beer that characteristic maltiness without being too sweet. Now I'm going to mash this at 152 Fahrenheit or 67 Celsius, and given the low ABV, this shouldn't take long. Now, what makes this one epic? Well, I'm collaborating with Epic Beer Trips on this one to brew our own version of a Scottish ale. And then we're going to get together and talk about our recipes and try the finished beer. Now, at the end of every beer tasting, when Norm comes over, we end up filling 1 or 2 of the big crowler-sized twisty cans, and Norm takes those home. I just fill those from the tap. But because I'm going to take some beer and store it for a little while, I want to find an easy way to fill that and sort of minimize the oxygen transfer. Here's what I've come up with. I always have on hand a keg of Star San, and because it's distilled water, this thing keeps for a long time. The other thing I'm using is some CO2, and I have this tap cooler. I actually use this for canning. You can use it for filling bottles as well, and I'm just going to use this as my my counterflow chiller. I'm going to take my twisty cans and sanitize them. All right, that'll do. Everything should be sanitized now. Thank you for your service, Star San keg. Replacing that with a keg of actual beer that I want to can. This is a little bit pressurized, so just take it straight out of my keezer. So I'll connect this. And I'm going to connect the CO2 to the other side of this tap cooler. Now whenever I press this button on the top, that's the CO2 coming out. So I'm going to take one of my cans, give it a quick flush, and add the beer. And that's really all there is to it. 3 canned beers. Fuggle is my bittering hop. actually the only hop. I'm going to add about 21 grams of Fuggle into this 3-gallon batch, and I'm boiling for 30 minutes, and this will go in right at the start. Look, it's a Scottish beer and it's not going to be hoppy. This is really just primarily for bittering. Although if any of those sort of earthy notes of the Fuggle end up coming through into the beer, I won't be that upset. So the wort is currently 71, 72 Fahrenheit or 21, 22 Celsius. I'm gonna get it lower than that before I add in my yeast. This is my yeast. I'm using Scottish Ale. This is Wyeast 1728. Now this has a very, very wide range of accepted fermentation temperatures from 55 Fahrenheit up to 75 Fahrenheit. And it's a very good, clean house strain at the lower end, but can generate some esters at the higher end. I'm not really looking for a lot of ester production for this beer, so I'm going to pick the middle of the range, so 65 Fahrenheit or 18 Celsius. So I will chill this using my Glycol chilling coil, and once I'm down to 18 Celsius, I'll pitch the yeast.
Hello. How are you? Hey, good to meet you.
This is Brian and Martin.
Very nice to meet you. This is a great surprise. It's well done.
Well, you're going to be my beer taster today.
Excellent.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you know you're going to be drinking Scottish Ale this morning?
I had no idea.
So I've canned these beers this morning.
Go ahead and give it a pour.
Yeah, please.
All right, let's do.
So we're at Drum Trout Brewing Company are we still in Wilmington?
We're in Wilmington. So we've been open just over a month. So I've been working here since then.
I see the little brew house behind us, and then pretty interesting selection of different beer types here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've so far there's an apricot blonde that has been especially popular, and then a maiden voyage brown ale, a few different styles of IPAs. There's a West Coast, a hazy, and a session IPA.
So let's see what do we think about the color on this guy?
Yes, I do like the color. You definitely get a really nice like brownish caramel to it. There's like a little hint I see of kind of like a red.
Yeah.
Especially like when you get it just in the light and the right way. Kind of comes through like a nice dark ruby.
It's got quite an aroma, hasn't it?
It does. It does. Yeah. The malt really does shine through as one would expect, and there is that note of sweetness as well.
Okay, so let's give this a try then.
Okay.
See what we think. Cheers.
Here we go. Cheers. Ooh, that malt really comes out in the finish. I really like that. It's got a really nice roasty character at the end. You get the sweetness, but it's not like punch you in the face dessert sweet.
Yes, and that was intentional for me, because that's the part of Scottish beers I don't really like, is sometimes the cloyiness of the sweetness.
Right.
Very malt forward, isn't it?
Yes,
Roast malt
it
forward.
really is. Yeah. And what's nice about it too is it has that, like, it's a good medium body, and you don't feel like you're just drinking a syrupy malt.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for doing this.
Yes, thank you.
Tasting with me.
Appreciate
It's a
it.
pleasure to meet you.
Yes, you
Thanks
too.
for letting me come into Drum Trout. Like, you're not even open for business yet, so this is cool to come in here.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll be back open today.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Martin.
That's a wrap.
Yeah.
Yay!
Awesome.
That was fun.
Thank you.
I enjoyed that. Thank you so much.